I had a question for the girls who do OnlyFans. So some people on OnlyFans can make a lot of money. Just curious, are you guys down to share like how much money you guys make?
I'd rather not, but they can.
Is it five figures, 6 figures a month?
Are you all in the top 1% of OnlyFans that make at least $2,500 per month?
Oh yeah,
I mean, yeah,
easy.
that, but
So you're all the top 1%, the 3 people.
mine says
Under
like
under 1%.
0 something. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Point what?
I don't know.
It fluctuates.
It fluctuates. It also
Yeah.
depends on
I
like if
don't-
you're with a good agency, if you're putting out a lot of content on social media. It depends on a lot of things.
I don't know what that means, so I don't know.
Do you guys talk to the guys that follow you? Do you have like those communications, or is it just the photos and the videos
Like on social media or on OnlyFans?
on OnlyFans?
I think it depends on if you have an agency. Sometimes the girls are managed. Sometimes like the girls are
You
not.
you personally?
You personally.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. You. Okay. What do you have any men that consider you to be like their girlfriend?
I feel like they do. I mean, we're kind of like selling a fantasy here, you know? Like, I feel like they might, yeah.
Okay. Do you see any like potential conflicts with that? And do they ever ask to meet up? And how do you get out of like ever actually meeting them in person?
Oh, I just very forward, like I say, I'm not comfortable with that. Like, if they ask anything that I'm not willing to do, or like meeting up, or like any photos or videos I don't want to do, I just tell them I don't want to.
Oh, okay. And so you have these guys who consider you to be their girlfriend, and then they'd be like, oh, but can we get some, like, want to get a drink sometime? And you're just like, no, never. How does
Yeah,
that?
I would say no. It's for like safety reasons. I don't really want to meet up with like people online.
They're probably parasocial. Like,
Yeah, I think it's more parasocial than like actually thinking you're a girlfriend. You're more like an e-girl to them. I don't think anybody thinks you're in a serious relationship ever, because they understand that they're on a platform talking to you. It's not like you're actually like talking on the phone or like meeting up for dates and stuff.
And parasocial relationships exist in a lot of capacities. Like, people feel a parasocial relationship with their favorite influencers and celebrities, but I think it borders on the line of a little bit more precarious and a little bit more, maybe this is not quite safe when you are so sexually involved with them as well, because that draws on emotions that are not typical in the average parasocial relationship, where people are just worshiping their social media idols or celebrities. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of...
Right. I mean, and also, like, those people have security for a reason. Like most celebrities that you see out have security. And you guys, there's just now all of these content creators who I don't think they're as careful about not letting the public know their whereabouts, and often they're actually really loose with letting people know their doxed information, and it just seems dangerous.
I think that's also one of the things. I think it's a bit of a cope when people say like, oh, OnlyFans is so much safer than these other platforms, because OnlyFans did not start as a content for that type of explicit content. It started off as like a Patreon of sorts, right, where they had more relaxed kind of standards. And so when you look at the traditional sex work environment, strip clubs, you know, anything like that, there are guidelines in place. There are restrictions. There's like direct training on that. Versus with OnlyFans, because it wasn't, the platform wasn't explicitly started with that intent, I feel like that's lacking, which can almost cause people to fall into more precarious situations, just depending on what comes up. You know?
I feel like even Instagram is more dangerous in a sense, because people are involved with your life emotionally. You're posting stories all the time. There's not like a stories feature on OnlyFans, for example. It's not like purely transactional. You can like communicate and comment and like be invested in a figure or social media persona like very, very intensely. And I don't see it like as that
There's
different.
also like the lack of, there's two things that are different than on Instagram. So now with Instagram, you can like post bikini pictures, you can post whatever, but it's not like overtly sexual. You're not like literally selling sex. I mean, you kind of are, but not explicitly. And then also the exchange.
You're marketing
For
sex.
them-
You're marketing
marketing
sex.
sex.
You're not selling
Yeah,
sex.
but I feel like
And then
people
also,
can be, go on.
my second one was the exchange of money. I think people
Nick, can you
start
put it on
feeling
start, please?
as though they have some sort of ownership over people
put
or
it on
ownership
start?
over the women because they've paid some specific amount, and therefore like they're entitled I worry about people becoming possessive, obsessive, and feeling entitled.
I just want to say, as far as like the strip club or like other like walks of sex work, I feel like OnlyFans is kind of like the safest, because like with those you have to be with these people in person. As far as, I don't want to say any words that I can't say, but like just other forms of sex work, like, you know, because I used to do those, and I joined OnlyFans because it was like, I don't have to see these people. They know what I want them to know, and it was like just safer, like as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Like,
She's talking about like what is the recourse though if someone was crazy, because there's a lot of recourse and there are set protocols and standards in place with these forms of sex work that are like explicitly considered sex work versus something like OnlyFans, which is a little bit more vague, a little bit more ambiguous. Like, what is the true recourse for that? Do you know what I mean? Like, are there those specific standards and protocols in place where people are even informing themselves about the potential dangers and how to be aware of them and how to navigate them if they were to arise? You know,
I would just say it's like the same protocols as like if anyone was in danger, like, you know, police or like.
I've had in person, like people follow me to my car and all these different things, like in real life or on
from
my
your
regular...
OnlyFans as a result of that, or like
no,
just in
before
real
I
life?
ever made a social media. I've had guys catcall me, follow me in their cars, just downtown LA, and all you can do is just like keep walking. But on OnlyFans, you can establish your specific boundaries. Like, hey, I'm not comfortable with this, this, and this. Here are some photo sets that you can buy. Here is how we can like chat, but it's very strict boundaries. I think it just depends on how you're able to establish boundaries for yourself. Because I feel like just existing as a woman is kind of dangerous in society. Like if you're walking alone in like a bad part of town. Like,
I mean, it's actually more dangerous to exist as a man.
yeah, I think men actually do get more violently targeted, but it's also...
Men are more likely to be victims of violent crime, so...
But
yeah,
who
of
is-
violent crimes for sure. But I think when it... Oh,
I
go
think
on.
it
I just
yeah, so,
I just want to know who is committing these crimes, like against the men.
Men.
That's kind of almost victim blaming. What does it matter what
No,
the gender
I'm
of
just
the perpetrator is?
saying, like, it just feels like men, the conversation of safety and the world not being safe, it's like just
Because
comes back to men sometimes.
it's not because of men, it's a very small proportion of men who commit these violent crimes. So
And they've existed since the beginning of time, and that's never going to change.
It's with almost any that's with almost any group of people, though. For any stats figures, it's almost always a small group, but usually, like if you divide by race or by gender or whatever, then there's a larger percentage within each categorized group in some as opposed to others, which makes the disparities seem large.
Yeah, I think when people say, oh, it's more dangerous for men, it really depends on how you qualify that. Because I feel like if...
just across the board, generally
can I
speaking,
finish?
violent crime. Go ahead.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I think women do a lot of risk de-escalation as much as they can. So if women took the same actions as men do, then you might see similar numbers of violence. But what ends up happening is that women from a young age are socialized to, okay, don't be out too late at night, or if you are, be with like a bunch of friends, and like always like be careful walking to the parking lot and have the keys with you and the pepper spray and the 911 ready to call. And if a guy like flirts with you or comes up with you, think about all the ways that he can harm you. So I'm not saying that men aren't larger victims of, like, let's say street violence, for example, but I wonder if those numbers would change if women were more casual like men are.
I think it just has to do with proximity, and then also like you have gang violence is going to be like one of the main, and so it's usually gangs fighting against each other
I have a
tend to be
question
men.
for you
Yeah.
after.
But like also like if you break it down by race, like black people tend to hurt black people, whereas white people hurt white people, Asian people hurt Asian people, women hurt women, men hurt men. Just like it.
I would say way
year
more men
round.
hurt women, but
So you'll see more men hurting women than women hurting men, but men attack men more than men attack women.
yeah, that's
So
true.
I think men, I think it's a society that is the reason for this.
Systemic thing.
I wouldn't say it's just men. I would just say it's how they were
Raised.
Is it raised or wired? Like,
Nature or nurture?
I don't think any of us were like have much of a chance with the way that the system is set up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
kind-
largely based on like socioeconomic conditions too. So go
Yeah,
on.
I feel like I agree with that because I also was born and raised in China, from Beijing for 15 years. I've never actually experienced such high amount of violence where I grew up. Maybe you could say it's communism, you could say it's like the government controls everything, but like this much amount of violence is kind of unheard of almost. I was like pretty shocked when I got here, to be honest.
So, sorry, you were saying in Beijing there's less violence than in America?
I think it's simply because the government has more control
So
over
wait,
there.
do you prefer communism then?
I don't have a preference. I think I actually prefer here, but because people here can actually have their own voice, have their opinions, and then like be who they are, I think that could potentially lead to like more violence.
Have you experienced with the communist government like governmental violence in China?
I've not personally experienced it, but I've heard things. What's that face?
Brian?
I have no idea what the fuck this has to do with dating, but okay.